So okay, we went down and we punched our holes. If you don't have a drill press set up the way I've got it downstairs, then you can use rotary punch, you can use a hammer punch, anything that can get your holes put in place. We now have that all done, leather ready for tooling, which is the next step. So what I'm going to be needing for this, I'm going to have a swivel knife. I've got a tool here, spoon. This is normally used for working clay and ceramics, but I find it really, really handy for doing the work I do here. I also have this handy little tool, which I use on a regular basis, and it's just a form of beveler. With that, I'm going to be using my stone, of course, to keep my swivel knife sharp. Ruler, pencil. Now you can have a transfer sheet of some sort if you have a more complicated pattern. I'm going to be doing a fairly basic pattern here, matching this one up, just ruled lines. I'm also going to be using this device here, which is a wonderful rotary tool for transferring a pattern on. You can see that that pattern is going to be all the way around in different places. Okay, so that's that and that. I'm going to want to work this in such a way that it matches. So taking a look at how I've got this one set up, I want to check just to make sure my measurements are right. So I'm about 3 centimeters on the line. So I'm going to measure down this line about 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters down, and going to be going down to the corner. And I'm just going to mark it lightly, as you can see, and then just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to use the width of the ruler. So there we go, that one's done. And now I'm going to be doing the other one. Now, remembering that, of course, these are going to be opposites. Alright, so I'm going to measure this one down my 3 centimeters. And I'll just poke my pencil. Isn't that a clever monkey? Okay, so I don't have a pencil because I broke it. So I'm going to use my spoon, and this will work as well. Again, I'm going to transfer my line down to the corner. The advantage of using this, of course, is it doesn't transfer any lead or any mark onto the... So I don't know if that shows up on the video, but you can see that there are lines subsequently in there. Great. So those are now set up. So now I'm going to take my pieces. We're going to do what we call samming, which is basically water treatment. I'm going to take my bowl up. In this case, my handy-dandy Pyrex baking dish, which I also will do my lasagna and other things in, but we won't talk about that. So, don't know if you can hear that, but that's the bubbles coming out. Now this does two things. The way I did it, a lot of cases what you'll see is people will just take a sponge and they'll sponge the surface and do their tooling this way, that way. In this case, I'm doing it also with the idea that I'm going to want to form this somewhat while I'm working it. Let's put this out of the way for a moment. And I got my towel up. I'm just going to towel this off a little bit so it's not getting my surfaces all and extra pieces that somehow found their way up. Excuse me. So you can see now we're all nice and damp. I'm just going to take another piece and throw that in there for now. Let that get started. gonna check it. Yeah. So just letting the moisture soak in a little. What I'm going to want to do first is I'm going to want to use my rotary tool and see how damp that is. I'm going to be doing this edge all the way around. I'm going to start in a corner. And once I start, I'm going to get my weight in. And once I've started, I'm not going to pick up again, because that would make it difficult to find my starting point and matching where I am on the rotary tool. Okay, so I've started that one. Now I'm going to go to this one. Now there are other stamps you can buy which have the same pattern on it, and you would just hammer them in and just match the edges. It's just another way of doing it. And of course I could do something that has a total hand tool, but this is handy. And again, like I say, once I get started, you see I can rock back and forth because I'm staying inside of the line and inside the lines of the pattern. If I was to lift it up, I would probably lose that and it would cause a problem. Alright. You can see I'm still rocking back and forth. There we go. And where to go? Nice. So I've got that done. Now, rotary knife all ready to go. So I'm going to follow the lines around. And you can do different tooling on different pieces. I mean, it really amounts to what you want to do. And once I get this done here, I'll show you a couple of things. I'm putting a fair amount of pressure on this, but not so much that I'm going to cut all the way through the leather. I just want to create a bit of an accent or a bit of a lip all the way around. You can see this lip that goes all around. It's big enough for me to get my fingernail into. So, I'm going to go onto the inside now, all the way around. Oops. Wonderful click sound. Now this is an older swivel knife that I'm using. A lot of the ones you see now you can pick up, they don't have the steel blade. This one has a steel blade. A lot of the ones you see now, they have like a synthetic or a nylon blade of some sort. Works just as well. In fact, they probably work a little bit better than this one does, due to the fact that this one, you know, you can, I find anyway, that if you're not careful with it, you can actually do a little excess damage to your piece. Now, like me, these ones have been around for a number of decades now, so, and they're still doing their job. Alright, just about done on this. And that's about it for that end of it. Now, I'll move it aside. I'm going to use this little beveler tool here. Now there's a number of things I could do here. One, handy dandy hammer. I could sit here and on this one, and this is, I could just work my way around. If I wanted to. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this by hand without the hammer, and because it's so wet, the leather will move rather easily. I'm just going to push down, drive this down, and force the moisture that's in there out a little bit, because this is a little damp for this. Usually I wait a little longer so that it's some of the water, more of the water moisture has been absorbed into the leather, and the excess is evaporated. What's happening is right now the leather, because it is saturated and it's wet, it's much more pliable, and by squeezing it down and shaping it down with the tools and with my fingers and other tools that I have around here, I can shape the leather or contour the leather in such a way that it will stay and hold the shape I give it. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm trying to highlight this all the way around, and so I'm just making a pass. This is my initial pass. I'll do this over and over again for quite some time actually, as the piece dries. And as I'm working, I also think of this as kind of like when you're making a pizza. I start with whatever it is I want to be highlighted the highest, or the relief, depending on the relief, and then I'll work my way down. And as you'll see with the plates, these pieces, which will eventually look like these, right? Again, I'll work both sides. I'll be working this side, much the way I'm doing now, and then I'll be flipping it over and working the other side with my fingers in order to get the shape I want. Okay, so that's that part. I'm going to do the outside relief. So right now I'm just highlighting that band that I used the roller tool on. And this is still in the flat. And this is the first initial part of the tooling. Let's see, I've got most of it done. Now, as you work it, you'll also see if it's too moist, if it's still too wet. What I sometimes see is the piece will do a little bit of what I like to call bounce back. It'll, the water will leak back in there, and because the fibers of the leather are still very lubricated and still loose, they'll work their way back out. So anyway, so the only other thing I would do on this right now, let's check that one more time, is I can actually grab one of the tools I use. And this is a little rock that I have, and I'll use that, and I'll just start mucking around on the edges, do a little bit of burnishing. What burnishing does is it'll start smoothing down the cuts, and I like to give my pieces a bit of a weathered look. It's just a particular look that is sort of part of my trademark. I like pieces to look just a little bit weathered when they leave the shop. So anyway, I'm playing with that. I'm not going to bother it on this edge because that edge is eventually going to be hidden behind the connecting plate. So that's the beginning of it. I'm going to actually let this all settle out a bit. I'm going to do some samming, making sure that all the pieces are ready to go for tooling, and we'll pick it up at that point. So that's it for now.